How do you overcome low step scores? How do you overcome the fact that you may have research experience in your home country but not in the US? Let's find out. As part of our Believe in the IMG series, we spoke to one of our students, Dr. Arunima Datta, who walks her through her journey on how she overcame some of these challenges and how she was able to match despite having less number of interviews. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our next interview in the series. We have our student, Dr. Arunima Datta, and she is going to share her story and how she overcame all the challenges in the USMLE journey. So, welcome, Arunima.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Pawan. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my experience. I am an international medical graduate, and I matched this year in internal medicine, and this was my first match, and I'm really happy about it. And I like to share my experience with Pawan and all the other people out there.
Thank you. So let's start with the beginning. You mentioned that there was initially you were not decided about USMLE versus home country residency. So talk to us about the decisions, the challenges, and then how you finally ended up working or preparing for USMLE.
Yeah. So after my graduation, I did 1 year of rural service, which was compulsory back in my state. So during that time, I was in a dilemma between like where to go for residency. I always wanted to go for USMLE, but I didn't have any guide, nobody to ask about USMLE. So it was like a far-reach thing. So what I really decided was to go to Delhi and then prepare for the home country residency. But I also had in mind that I'll also prepare for USMLE side by side. So that was my plan initially. So I started my coaching back in Delhi, and then I was during that time I wanted to learn about USMLE, so I searched a few stuff online, and I also talked to one of the mentors back in my coaching institute who said that like continue both of them together and take your step one and see how you do that. But I really found it very difficult to study both of them together. They were like two different set of things. You like can't study both of them together. Like they're like totally different. So the main hurdles that I faced was like I didn't have any knowledge about USMLE, like how long it will take to prepare and what is the financial condition that I must have back to support during the whole time. And third thing is that I was not sure whether I was like I will be a competitive student enough to clear USMLE and go to US to do the residency. I needed some guide. But that was the biggest hurdles that I have at that moment to take a decision. And I couldn't say anything to my parents because I was not confident. So what should I tell them? Like, I want to go to the US to do what? So it was a big problem for me. But ultimately, I found someone online. I had one friend and who's somebody, and then he was doing residency back at Drexel. So he told me that you can't do both of them together. You have to leave like one of them. Just focus in one, because he has seen people like who have good step scores, but they couldn't make it because they were not like dedicated enough to the USMLE thing. So I took the big decision by myself. I had the support of my parents and my friends, and they said like give it a shot. This is the only time that you can do like take a chance and see what happens. Then I decided to stop studying for like home country residency, and I prepared for step one. But since I have already spent a lot of time for like preparing for Indian exams, so I had just around 2 to 3 months for step one. So I was in a big mess, but I couldn't postpone it any further. I had some family issues and some other like because I was like not doing anything for the last 5 to 6 months. I couldn't postpone it any longer. So I took the exam in a hurry, and to my utter despair, I got a very low step score. So I didn't know whether to continue or to back. And then I had contact another senior like whom I found online, and I just told her that I got this score. What do you say? Like, should I continue or should I like sit back and do my home country residency? She said like give it a shot and take step two, and if you can improve it like your scores, you might get a residency. This was the biggest time like decision that I ever made, like to go on the USMLE journey or to sit back. But I had that much of I wanted to do something, and I wanted to dedicate myself to the US residency. And finally I stopped studying for Indian exams completely, and I dedicated myself towards USMLE step. And then things happened, and finally today I am here, like I got matched. So
Excellent.
that.
So, talk to us about overcoming the step one, low step one scores, because a lot of students have this question: how do I overcome? So that is one, overcoming the step one scores. But then, what else did you do in terms of clinical experience, in terms of research, to make yourself a very competitive applicant? So from step one to CK, what all did you do?
So I got my step one score in January, early January, and just after taking my exams in December, I joined an institute in my home. Like it's a private hospital, which was a renowned hospital in my state, and I started to work full time. And after I got my results, I was like very disappointed. But since I decided to take on the USMLE journey, I started to prepare for step two from the very beginning. I looked online for all the resources that I could have, all the forums, the USMLE forums. There are two forums which were really, really very helpful. They had like all the questions answered, all the materials which we should have, and I started preparing like from day one. And the best thing that I did to myself was like to integrate both my clinical experience with my studying for step two. Step two is basically like all clinical oriented questions. So it really helped me to understand the clinical scenarios while I was working at the hospital. So I could link both of them. So that was like really helpful for me. And I decided that I need a very good score to overcome my step one. So I didn't take the exam till I was really confident. I took a lot of NVMEs. I prepared myself very well with the UWorld twice. And then once I was confident with a good step, mock test exam score, then I decided to take the exam. And this is how like I got a really good score for step two, which is like I improved my step two score by 32 points, which was really amazing for me.
Yep.
And the second thing that I did was like I also started applying for USC from like around mid July, June, July, and I decided to do my USC and my CS together then early next year. So I have planned my timeline, and according to that, I have prepared a spreadsheet. I have made a long list of people like I was going to apply to, long list of like programs that I will going to apply to for the USC. And I started to apply, like personally email a lot of people. I think I emailed around 80 people, and around 2 to 3 only of them replied. And luckily I got a good reply from one of the good professors in a great institute in the East Coast. And that was my what to say, lucky charm. I got like 3 months of free observerships in a university hospital. So that's the biggest thing that I got out of this constant emailing. And after like around 6 months, I got a confirmation that I'll be doing the observership for free. And in internal medicine, that too, that was like a really good thing. And I also did 1 month of paid observership in a good hospital. So these are the two USC that I had. Plus, what I started doing, I started to look for research experience back in my home country, because we are not allowed to do research in a B1 visa in the US. So I wanted some publications for myself. Since I was not active in research before, I looked for some opportunity. So I had a medical institute near my home, actually. So it's one of the biggest institute in my country. So I talked to one of the professors. I asked him if he had anything for research, and luckily he was known to me from my private institute. I met him once out there. So he told me, like, if you're interested, you can come, but it's in a different department. It is in psychiatry. So I took whatever I got. In the first thing, I just wanted to learn about research, how to do a research, how to read the literature, do the research protocol, like learn about it. So I got involved, and I was so dedicated, like I needed something, I needed to learn a lot. So I worked there for 3 months, and I worked in 4 different projects. So I continued to work up then, and I got publications, which was also like published in the indexed in the PubMed. So this is how,
Wow.
like, I did 3 things together, like working, then studying, doing the research, and also looking for USC. I think this is how I overcome my step on score.
Excellent, excellent. Now, talk to us about the application and the interview journey. I know your PS was very unique, but you had limited number of interviews. So let's talk about that part. The application and the uniqueness in your PS, and then how did you leverage all that during your interviews?
Yeah. So I talked to, so during the time, I forgot to mention one thing. Very After I started my step one results, I started to make contacts. So I asked my families, my friends, to tell me about anybody whom they knew who was practicing back in the US, and that's how I found a lot of people. I connected to them. I totally tried to understand what is expected in the IVs, in the interviews. So what everybody
Right.
told me was, like, you should have your own story, so that it people remember you after you come back from the interviews. It's not that you have just
Yes.
saying the same things that, like, others, like hundreds of applicants have said. So that was really what I focused on during my interviews, because I knew I won't be getting a lot of interviews, like more than 10 or something like that. So but I focus mainly on my uniqueness. So I tried to bring out what actually mattered me, why I wanted to go to the US to do a residency, and what I wanted to do, what made me interested in that. So
Mhm.
I had my own story, like, I was interested in addiction medicine plus GI, and how I linked both of them. So that
Yep.
was a really unique thing that I had from my experience, and I tried to bring out that story in my PS, and also I told that the same thing, that this thing inspired me, and I want to learn some more in the same field in my future. That's why I came to the US. That's why I want to do the residency here, and want to learn more about the clinics, and as always, and also the research thing. And that is my story. That is why I'm here. So that resonated with a lot of people during my interviews. A lot of them really took interested in that, and the thing is that my research was also in the same line. So it really spoke to them that my USC, my research, my PS, and what I'm telling to them are all in the same pace, and I was telling the truth. And I always try to make my interviews in a conversation manner, and not say, like, I'm a hardworking person, I'll be a good addition to your team and all that stuff. It just, like, looks very boring.
Yes.
So I just made them, I told them that I had a patient, this patient had this problem with addiction, and then I tried to find out that I found that he had a liver disease. So I talked to him about the addiction thing, and then I got interested in both addiction medicine and GI, and this is how the things work. And I did this to help the patient, and this all told them that I was really interested in patient care and I really wanted to do medicine, and I'm dedicated towards this specialty. So I think this was something very unique about me, and I think this really helped me to match maybe or get selected.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the basic thing that I want to tell everyone is like it is very hard to find this to make this story, but if you give enough time to think about it, like it may take around 15 to 20 days maybe, or maybe more, but you will of course come out with something that really inspired you during your clinical experience, and how you can connect it and make a story and present it to the people. So I think people should work on it, and it will really give them a upper edge over the other applicants.
Excellent. Yes. So, how was our team helpful in terms of, we had a WhatsApp group, the PS and the CV interviews. How was all that useful to you?
So I'm really grateful to Sarthi because I joined Sarthi just before like the application time started, maybe in like August. So I didn't have much time before like the application to interact with a lot of people. But yes, so Sarthi really helped me in starting from like the very preparation, the CV. So what I should actually showcase in my CV, what are the most important things that I really would like, because this is different. Like US, they look into things like which are like volunteer things, the research experience, the clinical experience, what actually I did, and not just say like I checked people, I went to OPD every day. It's not like I went to OPD every day, but you have to mention you went to OPD, you examined like 10 patients per day, you did the history and physical examination, like to detailed work. So I learned about those things, the small, minute things, but to include in the CV. And the PS, like I prepared the PS, but my mentors really helped me to like proofread and like to outline like which things to include, which not to include. I got a lot of help from the PS, like very good feedback. And during the whole time, the interview preparation was the basic thing that really helped me to like get through the interview season. The Actually the main things like how you present yourself, from like how you dress to how you speak about like tell me about yourself, to like answers anything about the residency process, like what are you expecting the residency. So all the questions I will like really covered during the interview workshops like you conducted. So that was like one of the like most important things that I liked about Sarthi. Like it was like really helpful. And the fourth thing was like the constant WhatsApp groups. Like everybody was sharing their experiences. We knew like who was like which program was like interviewing at what time of period, like, and should we contact them, or were they already like they have saturated and they are not taking any more students, and what kind of interview questions you're asking. So it was like really it was a virtual connection to a lot of people, and I knew what I was expected from the interview. So I think like a lot of credit goes to USMLESarthi for this match.
Thank you. So, any last minute advice for students who may be struggling with step one, like, low scores, or who may think they don't have a unique story? So, what would you advise to people with low step scores or who think they may not have a unique story?
So, if you have just low step one score, you can always improve your step two score. And even if you have low step two score, you have always a third option, the step three score. So, the best thing is like you should always try to improve whether or not it is step one, it is step two or step three. Like many people say like step three is not important, but of course it does show your your talent or your how much studious you were or what kind of student you were. So of course step 3 is also an area where you can improve. Second thing is that you should have a clinical experience even back in your home country. So you should not just sit and study for step USMLE. So your clinical experience will be very helpful for your IVs. During your IV period, you will be asked an interesting case and how you managed patients and what kind of difficulties you had. So you can always like think back and tell your answers in a true way. You don't have to make up stories, and it will really help you in studying for step 2. Like clinically oriented people do better in step 2. It's a truth. The second is that try
Okay.
to find contacts all over the US. Like try to make you contacts. It's really important. And fourth is that for research, if you get any opportunity, do it. Don't think like it's not in my specialty. Should I do it or not? Do it. So it will really be helpful. So these are my things that I wanted to tell to everyone out there. I hope all of you like who journey match in your design specialty.
Thank you very much, Arunima. This was very helpful, and all the best to you. Our thanks
Thank
once
you.
again for sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Pawan. Have a great day.